It's been described as a phenomenon, having been seen by over 64 million people around the globe and recently becoming the highest-grossing Broadway show in history. It's Disney's The Lion King, winner of 6 Tony Awards and more than 70 other major arts awards, is making its Kansas premiere right here in Wichita at Century 2 Concert Hall, September 4th through 30th. And while the production itself is an amazing theatrical experience from the audience's perspective, what occurs behind the scenes to keep the production running is equally astounding. Stay tuned as we go backstage to visit with members of the production team to give you a new appreciation of what it takes to keep Disney's The Lion King alive and well.
I liken my job to an air traffic controller. We have a lot of people working on the show, over 100 folks nightly making it happen. We've got 50 in the cast and another 50 backstage. So coordinating them, making sure everybody knows where they're going safely, and making sure that all the choreography that happens backstage, which is often more complicated than Darth Vader's choreography on stage, goes off smoothly so that the audience out front never knows what's happening back here. Once we start loading the show in, which takes a full week, it takes 7 days to get the show loaded into the building, that once we're at that point, it's kind of putting the puzzle together, but we know where all those pieces are going to go. What's interesting about The Lion King is we have 2 sets. We've got 2 lighting packages, 2 sound packages, 2 scenic packages, which means that while we were playing our final week of the show in St. Louis, at that same time we were putting the show in here and loading it into the Century 2. That allows us to continually move the show from week and have the performances week to week to week to week without having to take that week off to set everything up. It's very unique and allows us to keep moving throughout the year nonstop. The show opened, this tour opened in Denver in 2002. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary, so it has been touring North America nonstop, no weeks off, no time off for the last 10 years. So that's what led us to Wichita. The most unique thing is, of course, are the puppets and the way that, the animals and the artistry of Julie Taymor, and how, the actors transform themselves. Technically, oftentimes, the show is filled with the puppets and the amazing lighting design, and that's what creates the magic. It's there's a very organic feel to the show. We kind of show you how everything happens. So you'll see the actor playing Scar's face, but you'll also see the Scar mask, and it's kind of up to the audience member to determine where their focus is going to be. It's the dual event is Julie Taymor's term for that. So there are 2 things happening at once, which is very unique. And that kind of combines both the artistic and the technical design side of the show. As the folks of Wichita probably know, Century 2 is a round building. And with the 3 different facilities we have here, it's a very unique design. They all share kind of one common core, but they're kind of shaped like pieces of a pie. But the footprint of most shows is a square. So the challenge was, if you think of laying a square on top of a triangle, how to make it work for those areas that we didn't have space for. So luckily we've kind of taken control over all the spaces here at the Century 2 and spread out, and and made it work. It's what we do, and by the time we opened for the press on Friday, everybody knew exactly where they were going, and by the time we got through the weekend, it was as if we'd been here for months. So this is the Elephant Graveyard. It's one of our major scenic pieces. You see bits of grass and wildebeest for the stampede things. What's interesting about touring is every month, we're usually average 4 weeks in a city. So every month we're performing in a different building. Where the performers, tell the story, if you will, never changes. What changes is the building. So, last city was St. Louis at the Fox Theater. So that was a completely different setup than it is here at the Century 2, which is completely different than it's going to be in Albuquerque, which is our next city. And that ranges everywhere, covers everything from where the dressing rooms are. They may be in the basement this city, stage right up a bunch of stairs that city. And so the flexibility and the creativity we have to show in making the show kind of work backstage is part of the challenge of my job, and I'm certainly assisted by a number of really capable people, but also makes it unique to touring. And the thing that we always have is the air. So we take these pieces, these giant pieces, we hoist them up out of the way, so that's where they'll store during the show. When they're not on stage, they get lowered in, rolled on stage. They play their bit, they do their thing, they come back off and go up in the air again. And that, of course, allows all this space here to be free for the performers and the people changing costumes and all those people those air traffic control people I mentioned earlier. So imagine if this piece were on stage or were always here on the deck, we'd have absolutely no room backstage. And we just have to be very creative. That's actually one of our ostriches from Can't Wait to Be King. So that gets stored up there. These grass pieces here are actually what we call affectionately the grass heads. The performers wear those as headpieces, so they're stored that way. We've got wildebeest, wildebabes, some puppets over here. It's interesting. Part of one of the benefits of having the show run this long and have so many subsequent productions is that technology has changed and we've been able to change with it. So imagine 1997 when the show opened, not everyone had a cell phone. We weren't, computer technology and the lighting technology and sound technology that we all take for granted now wasn't where it was. So we're constantly updating our equipment and constantly updating, the materials we're using, making the show technically, up to date and more actor friendly also, as materials change and we discover new things. There are currently 8 productions of The Lion King running across the world. The Broadway company, the US tour, the London company, the United Kingdom tour, Hamburg, Madrid, and Tokyo, and a Japan tour. So, and we're going into rehearsals this fall for a Brazilian company, and after that is an Australian company. So The Lion King keeps happening, and with each subsequent production, we learn things, and the creative team gets to revisit the show, and then all of those companies, including ours, get to reap the benefits of that. So, for example, these giant masks here that the dancers use throughout the show, the smaller ones actually our female ensemble dancers use, are extremely lightweight and weigh nearly nothing. And again, it's a byproduct of technology changing, materials changing, and having been reworking the show to find things that allow the performers to do these crazy things we ask them to do. The first thing we have here, of course, is the floor. Obviously, we travel with it. It's a 6-inch deck and contains all kinds of things unique and necessary for the show. Scenery moves along some of these tracks. Special effects are embedded in it. And like I said, the playing area, this area never changes for the actors. You'll see here these numbers. Those are the actors, the dancers, and performers use for spacing and knowing that, at this particular moment, at this particular dance, I should be at the number 14. So, like I said, all of this never changes. It's what's back there that we have to adapt to. We are currently having what we call a work call. It's a weekly, the crew comes in every week and to do maintenance and touch up and cleaning and just making sure that the show looks like it did, back in Denver in 2002. I mean, that's a big part of my job is maintaining the show so that it is the same experience tonight here in Wichita that it was on that opening night on Broadway and throughout the years. People come to expect something, as we talked about, from The Lion King and popular culture and from Disney. And so, we're always working to make sure the show looks and sounds and plays, at its ultimate and the way it was originally meant to. Another thing, obviously here at the Century 2, usually there are no aisles here. So part of that trip, a few years ago was that we said, okay, well, we need to have aisles for some of our staging, most notably for Circle of Life at the top of the show. And so we came in and we removed these seats and created these aisles that aren't usually here. So I know some of the audience will probably say, oh, do I remember that aisle there? I didn't have an aisle seat. Now you do. But again, these are things that we have to make sure can happen before we can come in, and it's a big commitment on the part of the theater as well to say, okay, you can come in and basically, reconfigure, our building. But I like to think that the end result is beneficial for everybody, and certainly, the Circle of Life, and the first time you see that, if you've never seen it, makes it worthwhile. It's truly, even 15 years later, people say is, the most exciting, opening number in 10 minutes. They're in musical theater, so please make sure you come on time.
I'm in charge of, I have 2 assistants, and in each city we pick up 17 dressers total. 16 dressers and 1 laundry person. And so I have to do the scheduling for that. And I'm always a city ahead of the show. So now I'm working on Albuquerque while we're here in Wichita. And when we were in, where were we? St. Louis, I was working on Wichita. So it's choreographed, just like on stage. We have each dresser. One dresser has 3 people that they're in charge of. Each performer has a closet, and this would be their closet. And there's 3 people to each closet. So you have 1 dresser per closet, and each performer has a number and then their name, and then we have each costume has a letter. So this would be 20's first costume, so 20A would be the first costume. So the dresser has to learn that, and each dresser has like 20 minutes to learn the whole show. And me and my assistants, we have 4 people to train in 2 hours. Just imagine 20-some performers and 8-10 dressers trying to run around here, getting every performer in each costume. The dressers were always a scene ahead of the performer. So on the bench here, they would preset the next costume. So while the performer's on stage, the dresser is setting the next costume for them. Or if it's a quick change, it may be on deck. So stuff have to be preset in a basket, the costumes, and the dresser meets the performer on deck. And quick change has to take place there. Well, anything that touches the skin has to be washed every performance. So that's why we have a laundry person on 6 days a week on an 8-hour call. And they have to wash everything that needs to be washed close to the body. Anything that's not close to the body, we have to dry clean every 2 weeks. It goes out. So also we have to schedule dry cleaners for each city that we go to, and shoe repairs. Maintenance crew, we have 8 out of that 16 that come in. We pick up 8 we choose 8 to do maintenance on the call. We have out of that 8 is a craft person, shoe repairs, principal prep that prep the principals, the maintenance on the principals. And we have a steamer that has to steam out all the dashikis. They iron the dashikis, and steamers that steam out bird ladies and lioness silks. Changes, they average from 11 to 14 per person. So but some of the like the lioness are repeated like 4 to 5 times because they wear that. So we have 250 on stage every night, and we travel with 350 in the closets. Because also, this is the performance closet. There's also a swing. There's 8 swings departments. So you have 2 for the male singers, 2 for female singers, 2 for male dancers, and 2 for female dancers. Just being backstage for the Lion King. It's a great show. It's a different show. I worked several shows in New York, but working Lion King is just amazing. The costumes, the work and the imagination that Julie Taymor put into it to transform the actors into animals and plants is just amazing. And this is one of my favorite. It's when Nala and Simba reunites, and it starts off all green, and then all of a sudden it blooms and open up, and it would bloom like that. Each performer has a different color, different pattern in in the design, and coordinating pants to go with that. And hat, the cone hat you see up here, mostly worn when they're operating a puppet, so we call it the puppeteer's costume. And it would go with this, which is a mud cloth, and this would be worn with one of the mud cloths. In this theater, the guys are on stage left, so they're on another side of the theater. But you asked about the jungle hats, and this is one of the jungle hats that they would wear in the jungle scene. And the colors coordinate with their jumper, which is on the other side. This dress would be worn with this headpiece right here. And it's part of the opening number when the bird ladies, when the presentation of Simba, and you have 5 bird ladies that come down the aisle, and this is what they would wear. And inspiration was taken from sailboats. If you look at it, almost look like a sail, even with the rope and the knots. And the fabric is actually the fabric on the sailboat. This is the grass skirt. And this is in the grassland scene when Mufasa's teaching Simba how to hunt for food. And the performers have a palette with grass on it, and it looks like they have the puppets going through the grass for Mufasa and Simba. Then the real actors come out. And this is what the performers wear on the bottom of with the grass heads. So it's amazing the detail in the corset. It's darker up here. It's supposed to match their skin tone. And then it ombres down out to get lighter and lighter. So it blends in with the rope at the bottom. Okay, this would be the hat that I showed you earlier, the jungle hat. This would be the costume that would go with that. It's a jungle, we call it jungle dashiki. And the colors in the flowers, this is actually inspiration was taken from a plant in South Africa. Okay, and the colors would match the hat that I showed you earlier. And this is all hand pleated. These are wildebeest pants, and they're when Scar, the evil uncle, tricks Simba to going into the canyon with the wildebeest for the stampede scene. And it's all raffia, leather strips, and yarn. And it's interesting because it's all on a mesh backing. So all this was latched and looped onto a mesh backing. This is the trickster. This is when Simba and Nala tricks Zazu. They're trying to get away from him because he's escorting them he was assigned by Mufasa to go with them to wherever they were going, but they're trying to get away so they can go to the elephant graveyard. So these tricksters come out, and this is one of the tricksters' costumes.
On a daily basis, we check all of our puppets and make sure that they're clean and make sure that they're in working order. If we have new performers coming into the show, we make sure that the puppets fit them properly and that they're able to work with them. So our job is a lot of maintenance and repairs, but there's about 230 puppets in the show, so it actually is a pretty big job. Some of the unique challenges that we face are finding the materials that we need. We do a lot of mail ordering because there's some things that are really unique in the show. I can show you on some of the masks later. There's a lot of natural things like horse hairs and peacock feathers and things that are used. So you can't necessarily go to your local department store and find those things. And often, because we do 8 shows a week, just the time constraints of maintaining everything can be significant. So those are kind of our biggest challenges. And then to keep the puppets light and strong is a very challenging balance. Lots of the puppets, when you see them on stage, are going to appear as if they are carved wood. Most of those puppets are actually made out of carbon fiber, which is a material that's used in boat building and race car building. And it's very light and strong, and it's paper thin. So anytime you see something that looks like carved wood, that wouldn't work for us because it would be too heavy and too hard to maintain. So that's one of the unique materials that we use. Then a lot of the decorative things that you see on the masks are very unique. We have yak hair, horse hair, lots of feathers, basswood, lots of things. So you'll see, and some things that are very familiar. For example, you'll see the elephants in the show, and their skin is made out of Tyvek, which is the same material that your FedEx envelopes are made out of. So it's a wide range of materials. These are some of the masks of our main characters. This is Mufasa, and anybody who's familiar with the show or the story knows that Mufasa's the good guy. And you can see that he has sort of really warm colors, and he's pretty inviting. He almost looks, nice and soft, like you would want to touch him. And this is, in some ways, it's almost representative of the sun or maybe a halo. And this is some of the materials I was telling you about. His mask is all hand painted, but it's actually over the carbon fiber. So although it looks like wood, it's actually very thin, very strong material. This is all basswood here. And then these are burnt peacock feathers that make up his mane. So each one of those tufts is individually tied on with sinew. And so there's a lot of different materials and a lot of work that goes into making one of these masks. And so that's our father, Mufasa. And Simba is also a very round, very soft shape. And this is Mufasa's son. This is the carbon fiber again. Basswood, leather, and horsehair makes up his mane. So that's what keeps him looking soft and inviting. And then this is the lioness, Nala. And she's all carbon fiber. And because she's a lioness, she doesn't have a mane. And as opposed to the male lions, she looks a little bit more like stone. And that's just part of the design. But again, it's the same material underneath. And here, rather than having something that's worn on his head, this is Zazu. And he is one of the only puppets in the show, or the only puppet in the show, that's completely handheld. So he has to manipulate this puppet completely by hand. When I take out this handle, I have two triggers. One, where my index finger is, that controls his mouth. And then the one where my thumb is controls his eyes. So he can blink and talk. His neck is very flexible because, again, as I was saying, you have some very familiar materials in some of the puppets. That's actually a junior slinky in there, and that's what keeps him very flexible. My left hand controls a crossbar on the bottom that opens his wings. Ooh, my fingers are a little bit short to do that with one hand, and that's how he flies. Like I said, because he's completely handheld, he moves completely independently of the actor. So they do spend a lot of time learning the puppet, learning how to use the puppet, and learning how to make him expressive in the way that they want him to be expressive. They spend hours often just in front of a mirror, just learning the craft of being a puppeteer. It was Julie Taymor's desire to really bring in actors and dancers that were like at the top of their profession and teach them the puppetry rather than bringing in puppeteers and trying to teach them to act and dance and sing. And so this is often is a very, very new skill to many of the actors that come in, and it can be challenging in the beginning. Now, remember when we talked about the hero lions and that they were very round and very soft looking, almost like the sun? When you look at this character, you can see that he's not quite as friendly looking. He's a little sharp looking. And this is our villain. This is Scar. And he has the sharp teeth and the green eyes. He is also the carbon fiber, but his feathers that are real feathers have been treated with cheesecloth and an adhesive to make them very stiff and kind of sharp. And he's another character that while his mask is very light, he actually wears all of this apparatus under his costume. And that is so that he can move his mask. And I'm just going to switch it on. He controls it with a finger control that's worn in the palm of his hand. And this is going to come right at you. So be prepared. So this actor can actually use this mask to cover his own face. Or he can lunge at another character. Or when he is angry, you'll see his mask move. And that's part of this character. But as I said, you can see there's many more angles. He doesn't look quite as huggable as the other ones. And his entire costume, with the costume that fits not only over this, but his boots and his wig, he comes in at about 35 pounds. Because you were asking a little bit about what they weigh before. And so he's the second heaviest single person costume in the show. So this, at one point, we visit the savannah, or much of the show is actually set in the savannah. And to become the savannah, the actors will actually wear these grass pallets on their heads. There's 20 of these in the show. So altogether, they create the savannah. And not only do they wear these, but then they have to walk and sing wearing these. And they're better at balancing them than I am.
Do they actually use their hands to balance them on their heads?
No. It's completely done with the adjustment in the back of the head mount. If I can get it tight enough, I can show you. It's a little bit of a challenge. And then they're able to walk and move. There's something about the story, which is fantastic. And it's for all ages, and everybody comes away with something. And then, especially, this has been such a groundbreaking musical because of the use of the puppetry and the use of imagination and the way it engages the audience, because it's almost as if they're participating in the show themselves, because they're using their imagination and they're bringing their themselves to the show, and understanding what represents an elephant and what represents a gazelle and what represents a giraffe. And it's part of that imagination and wonder and discovery, and I think that that's part of what makes it amazing. Not to mention the music and the sets, the imagination that went into it. It's really a beautiful show to listen to see. The story is fantastic. So all of those things are part of what's made it such a phenomenon, and has made it a phenomenon around the world, and that it's translated into languages everywhere. And often I hear people say, "Oh, I just came for the grandkids," or my kids wanted to see it, but I really liked it. I think when people see the Disney name, they might be led to believe that it's something that would appeal more to children. But once you listen to the adults, you'll hear them say, "I really liked it. It was really beautiful," or "It really touched me." So that's exciting.
Don't miss this amazing opportunity to see Disney's The Lion King live right here at Century 2 Concert Hall. For tickets to the production, go to wichitatix.com to purchase online. To purchase by phone, call the Wichita Tix box office at 316-219-4849 or visit the box office in person, located just inside the concert hall foyer from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. For City 7, I'm Jacob House.